It is the week 3 waiver wire show here on the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, and we're starting with our injury rounds as we always do in honor of our dear friend, the great Dr. Gene Bramall. You can check out his full injury report at footballguys.com. And just to highlight, as we go to quarterbacks, everyone's worried about Justin Herbert, fractured rib cartilage, week to week, questionable for week 3, and we'll see what happens there with Herbert. Won't know about his status until later in the week. He'll be limited if there's any practice for him at all leading up to game day. Of course, we know at quarterback, Trey Lance had the right ankle fracture, the dislocation, the season-ending injury, the surgery already. That's why we're going to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo here in a matter of moments. But before, Dak Prescott, just a reminder that his target return has been week 6, right thumb fractured. And well, they got win with Cooper Rush. So Bloom, maybe they don't need to rush Dak Prescott back. These are the jokes, everyone. These are the upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report available at footballguys.com, written by Sigmund Bloom. And at the top, he is our cover athlete for our great thumbnail. It's Tua Tagovailoa at 25 to 50%.
Yeah, and I understand. I'm not going to waste a lot of time here. Obviously, if he's available, I have him at 25, 50%, which is about as high we're going to do quarterback. You should ride the wave of hype. We'll see. We'll see how much of it was the Ravens. I go by the Yahoo availability. If it's 60-ish% available or rostered, then let's just make sure. And he's the leader because maybe Mike McDaniel hit on something. See, so I think something that we maybe had the precursor to that we didn't totally understand was Mike McDaniel was different, right? Mike McDaniel is different. Yes, he played football at Yale, although he barely played. He did win the pound for pound strongest guy on the team in the weight room in his senior year. Since you play Madden, right? My wife, the love of my life, Kate, will talk about how when she would play Madden with people, she would call Hail Marys. And people, that's not fair. Stop it. That's not how you play football, right? So did Tua and Mike McDaniel and this amazing combination of speedy number one receivers come up with something where, you just wear down a defense and then late you just dial up the deep shots, just keep going and going and going. And for fantasy football, that's a potential game changer, much in the same way that Chip Kelly speeding up the tempo. And again, the point is making defenses get tired and making them make mistakes. Now, let's remember, Nick Foles had one of the most efficient seasons in NFL history. This isn't Tua shade, okay? I know that the Tua defenders are enjoying their moment this week, right? But Nick Foles had one of the most efficient seasons in NFL history when that system had the drop on defenses. So the important thing is for fantasy, if you were riding that Chip Kelly wave, first it was Michael Vick, you benefited, and until we see otherwise, it looks like you might benefit, although that Buffalo game looms large as a test to see if this is for real.
Yeah, it's a measuring stick, to be sure. We'll be cheering on Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins and see what they can do. Carson Wentz, 15 to 30% up next with Washington. And hell, let's go ahead and throw in Jared Goff at 10 to 20%.
And in savvy one quarterback leagues, these guys should be out there, but just in case you need another week, well, you will see if it was just the Detroit defense. Remember, Wentz had a stretch like this for about a month last year with Indianapolis. So it isn't, he runs hot and cold. This is that hot part against Philadelphia. What great tests for these hot quarterbacks, these defenses. And then Jared Goff, and you saw it, they scored 35 points in week 1. It just happened that 3 of the touchdowns were rushing touchdowns. This week, they scored 36. And all 4 touchdowns were through the air. So this is going to be a productive offense. By the way, watching the Eagles defense last night, maybe we should put a little more respect on the Lions offense for what they did in week 1 against the Eagles. Jared Goff, we know that if the offense is set up for success, he can harvest that success. And that's exactly what's happening. And they get to face a Minnesota team that's kind of got their tail between their legs right now.
People would say, why isn't Jared Goff higher at 3 to 5%?
Well, he could be. Well, it's mainly just because one quarterback leagues, you don't want to empty your waiver wire wallet for a quarterback unless it's a potential true game changer. And I think that we just aren't going to have that. Even if Desmond Ridder and Malik Willis get on the field this year and they are running quarterbacks, I think the efficiency as passers is going to really drag them down. So I just think it's because in one quarterback leagues, that's an easy position to solve. Now, if you're in a super flex, someone asked me this morning, we're going to get to Jimmy Garoppolo because that's the quarterback that's most likely available in your one quarterback leagues. how much to bid on Jimmy Garoppolo in a super flex league. That's a 50+% guy in a super flex league, because you're not going to get a dedicated starter who we know has a very high floor and is a proven player available in those leagues. In one quarterback leagues, we see you can scuffle at quarterback. Again, late round quarterback, streaming quarterback. These approaches have shown year after year they can work. Now, granted, it's going to be tough when you get to the fantasy playoffs and you go up against a Jalen Hurts or you go up against a Josh Allen and you're starting whoever the flavor of the week is. Ryan Fitzpatrick's not out there for us anymore, but to get you to the playoffs, it can work.
It can work. To the 1%ers we go, and there's a cluster of them. Joe Flacco, Marcus Mariota, Zach Wilson, Kenny Pickett. There's Desmond Ridder, Cooper Rush in there, 1%er, very deep 2 QB flex leagues. And also you mentioned Malik Willis, who we got to see because Titans keep getting blown out. And the Ryan Tannehill thing, there's windows, Bloom, in fantasy football and in life. There are windows. The window for the Titans has long been closed with the Ryan Tannehill experiment. The faster you could get, it's like I feel like my Steelers take, the faster you can get to the rookie quarterback, and I feel better about Pickett than Willis, but still, the faster you can get to Willis, the better off the future will be for your team. Mike Vrabel will survive this.
Yeah.
But this is Ryan Tannehill's last years with the team.
Yeah. It's a really interesting discussion. Can you tell? See, the subtext here is the waiver wire is just not that interesting early this year. So we're talking more like Thursday night type topics, but all these topics are tangential to your waiver wire decisions. And we just glossed over Jimmy Garoppolo 3 to 5% because, well, we know what he is. And if you had Trey Lance and that's the best waiver wire quarterback going up against Denver again, that should be an interesting game. I think that, are we going to get to the point early, Cease, where Broncos fans are rooting against the team so the coach gets fired in his first year? Anyway, getting sidetracked. You have some interesting 1%ers here. Your Thursday night type discussion, though, is there is something to be said. It's like imprinting from psychology, like young, I think it was Geese and Conrad Lorenz, I think was the psychologist. And, they imprinted him, right? Oh, you're our mommy. And they copied him. The point being that you're really malleable early on. And I think that applies to quarterbacks. And I think there is an idea that whether we like it or not, letting a quarterback sit, depending on where he's at in his development, is better for his development than throwing him into the fire. And I think that's what Mike Tomlin's thinking about. That's what Mike Vrabel's thinking about. Now, alternatively, there are quarterbacks that learn on the job. The stuff they're going to need to learn, like experience is the best teacher, right? The stuff they need to learn, they're not going to learn just from studying and being in the incubator. They're going to learn by getting out there and making mistakes and remapping their brain and saying, oh, okay, I have these considerable tools like Josh Allen, this is what I need to do. So I think that's the tough choice. I do think with Willis, so let's talk about Willis, Ridder, and Pickett all together. It's really just a question of who's going to get on the field the earliest. And the advantage that Ridder has, even though Marcus Mariota is playing the best out of the 3 quarterbacks ahead of these 3 rookies, is that Atlanta will probably fall out of the playoff race the earliest. That's going to help him get on the field. With Vrabel and the decision with Tannehill, 7 wins, 7-9-1 might do it in the AFC South this year, really. So how long does it take before the Titans wave the white flag? And we know Mike Tomlin is going to be conservative. Cooper Rush showed us that he can, at least in a 2 quarterback superflex league, get you through the way he's getting through the Cowboys. Now, Joe Flacco is interesting because of magical thinking. Yes, Nick Chubb takes a knee. It's 30-17, and we say, wow, the Browns are 2-0. They have a chance to beat the Steelers on Thursday night and go 3-0. And wow, it's good to be a Browns fan knowing that Deshaun Watson, and all of that, there's a lot packed into that. But at least from a football standpoint, things will even get better. And maybe Jacoby Brissett is a 1%er. Like if you have to start Jacoby Brissett, is the Steelers. On the other hand, now you lose and Joe Flacco, and you see the way the Jets have rallied around him. And if they beat Cincinnati, if they beat last year's Super Bowl representative, send Cincinnati to 0-3 this week, and they go to 2-1, do you really put Zach Wilson in? Yeah. But that being said, Garrett Wilson looks fantastic. We know Elijah Moore is good. There might be something as this offense starts to realize itself with Zach Wilson. So if you're scuffling at quarterback, and even in 1 quarterback leagues, maybe Zach Wilson's worth a preemptive ad. He can certainly run around. Marcus Mariota is still 1%er. against Seattle this week too. Flacco is a 1%er. So these are streaming quarterbacks for you, but I won't be surprised if the Jets win if Flacco is not done as the starter. And I did get to see that clip where he's saying his kids just tell him, like when his kids try to correct, like he'll try to correct his kid's baseball swing or something. And they'll be like, you suck, Dad. Like, you stink. Like, you're not good at football. Don't tell me anything about baseball. And he had to pull up his highlight reel to show them, no, kids, because they're so young, I guess. They haven't seen him play good football, but they did in the last minute of that game.
Just show him your Super Bowl ring, Joe. It's fine. Show him
Yeah.
John Elway saying you're still in your prime. It is the Audible. It is our week 3 waiver wire show here, and we got to get to the running back position. But before we do, it is time for some more reports from Dr. Gene Bramall. Again, the full injury report is available at footballguys.com. So I urge everyone to go there to check it out, to enjoy it every single time. But let's talk about the running backs that are banged up for your fantasy team. And we're looking at J.K. Dobbins day to day. Now, what's interesting is that Dr. Gene Bramall on his report says day to day because, well, that's what we all thought when he was practicing last week. And you're like, oh, he's getting close to return. And then John Harbaugh came out and was like, he's week to week. And he kind of didn't want to talk about it. So it was weird. So that's Harbaugh playing games or whatever. I don't know. But I wrote about it yesterday, Bloom, on the Newswire. And I was like, oh, I thought he was like close. Is he not close? Like, what's going on, John Harbaugh? Either way, we'll get to Baltimore in just a little bit with Justice Hill. That's a little bit later, Bloom. But let's give Raheem Mostert all of his due, just like we did about our wonderful cover athlete, Tua Tagovailoa. Raheem Mostert sits at the top of the running back position at 20 to 40%.
And I hesitated. I almost wanted to put Mostert higher. And if you go over 50% on Mostert, I don't think you're crazy. And maybe, Cease, maybe I'm making too good of a case in my own head here and out to the people that the waiver wire isn't that important. Because the more I say it, and it is true, every year there's maybe 2 or 3 difference makers on the waiver wire. Maybe. So you have to pick your spots. Like, Cease, what's the chance that Curtis Samuel's the best waiver wire pickup all year? At least 25%? Maybe 50%?
Maybe higher.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's it. Curtis Samuel, that's as good as it's going to get on the waiver wire this year, right? Last year it was Elijah Mitchell, Cordero Patterson, right? And Raheem Mostert, yes, he can't stay healthy. But he's the starter.
Windows,
right? He's looking good. Miami's offense has defenses on the run. So, yes, the running game has not gotten the engine to turn over, but Mostert looked better. And you better bet now it's going to be really interesting to see how Buffalo approaches Miami in this game. What a perfect time, the schedule luck, right? For us, for viewers of the league, for consumers of the entertainment, that this is the week Buffalo and Miami play the first time. Because I think from a defensive standpoint now, you have to say, first, we're going to take away the deep pass, and that's going to open things up for Mostert. And Mostert looks good. Again, he knows the system. They're committed to him. And yeah, injury history, even if you get 4 or 5 running back 2 weeks where you put Mostert in, he gets the majority of the touches. And again, he's playing defenses. They're going to go with light boxes. Then that's pretty good for 50 or 75%. So my 20 to 40% rating here really, and there's nobody else that's even that high other than Tua this week, really stands for the idea that I'm not going to tell you push all your chips in because, man, if Mostert goes down next week, we should have seen it coming. Why did I spend all of my waiver wire money on somebody that we know gets hurt? But at the same time, there might not be better waiver wire pickups this year, especially at running back, because as you're going to see this week, there's a big drop off to the next tier. And I just think that we're seeing more split backfields. We're seeing more teams, like was pointed out in the chat room. I think it was Ian's Cat saying Buffalo and Baltimore have the most efficient offenses, and they're not running the ball. They're not running the ball well. They don't care. What's happening, Cease? Something's happening. It depends on your quarterback. It depends on your surrounding personnel. But I think teams are showing like, nah, actually, you don't need to establish the run.
If you're Buffalo, you better do it in the postseason because football changes. It's an eternal rule. Until we see something different, you better run in December. You better run in January. You better run your ass to the Super Bowl. Sorry, Joe, let's get to the next cluster of running backs. And I call it a cluster bloom because it kind of
It is.
is.
Yeah.
And hell, we could just talk about everybody because Darrell Williams
Yeah.
is there. Benjamin is there. Now, they said the James Conner thing, that what is it? Not a big deal. I think that was the quote.
Not
And I'm
serious
like,
or long term.
Not serious or long term. I'm like, it's James Conner. Like,
Right.
that doesn't make me feel good. And Justice Hill, Baltimore, we talked about the Dobbins thing. Mark Ingram in Nolans, there 3 to 5% for him. Tyler Algier in Atlanta. Jordan Mason in San Francisco. Yeah, we've got some running backs, but maybe not the running backs that get you terribly excited.
No, you got a split backfield in Arizona, and with Connor, it's just that the injury seal's broken. Connor was a great running back for Pittsburgh until the injury seal would get broken, and then we could barely count on him after that. And you just don't like seeing it get broken this early. And whatever the severity of the injury, it was enough that he didn't come back in the game. Williams and Benjamin split it pretty close. I would say Williams over Benjamin if you have to only pick up one, and you're putting him in against the Rams this week because he gets the goal line carries. He looked good too. Williams was very efficient, honestly, more efficient, much more efficient than James Conner. And then Benjamin looking good, reviving his career here after the first 2 years. It looked like, wow, why is he even on the roster if they're not playing him when other running backs are hurt? Mark Ingram, we'll see if Alvin Kamara is ready to play this week. Ingram looked good until his game-changing fumble. Jordan Mason and Tyrion Davis-Price was on this list yesterday, and then he has a high ankle sprain. So now it's Jordan Mason. Cecil is going to be Marlon Mack next week, or Abram Smith, who they're trying out. We shall see. Right now it's Jeff Wilson's backfield, but with Jimmy Garoppolo, remember this, Jimmy Garoppolo in at quarterback for San Francisco increases the value. And this is sad. And this is where we become unfeeling fantasy analysts, right, Cecil? Right. Jimmy Garoppolo getting hurt helps the value of everybody in the offense. Everybody. There's not one player in the offense whose value is not helped by Jimmy Garoppolo being the quarterback over Trey Lance for lots of reasons. But Lance, you had to figure, was going to get more rushing attempts, maybe get some more rushing touchdowns. That's going to open things up, and we care more about this San Francisco team that really just – could you feel the sigh of relief? I hate to say that because I hurt for Trey Lance and what happened to him. But I think that you have a weight lifted here. Tyler Algier, 1%. Who I really want to focus on here is Justice Hill. I want to focus on Justice Hill for a few reasons. Let's talk a little bit more about J.K. Dobbins. And it's interesting, sees how we can unpack things in social media. In social media, when you reveal things, maybe you're not revealing what you think you're revealing, right? Remember when J.K. Dobbins was so mad at Ian Rappaport? I think it was Rappaport, right? He was so mad at him for reporting that he was questionable for week 1. Do you remember that? Well, he's questionable for week 1 and 2 and 3. And I don't want to say setback. We have heard more that it wasn't a simple ACL tear for him. And if he had been on the field for week 1, Cease, then we would go back and say, well, he was mad at Ian Rappaport because, well, Rappaport and Schefter sometimes report erroneous stuff or stuff that changes or otherwise is in dispute. But it's clear that Dobbins wasn't even close to playing in week 1. So why was he so angry? Rarely do we see players even comment on what's reported about them, about injury return, right? Now you saw, I think he got frustrated again, right? There was another time that he popped up on social media because somebody said he was limping after a drill. Remember that? So you try to put this together, and now the simplest theory is it's not going well. His recovery's not going well. I mean, his ACL tear was over a year ago. So that's not good. Maybe we should be even talking about Gus Edwards as a preemptive ad, but right now it's Justice Hill, who led the Baltimore running backs in snaps. Yes, Baltimore's running game is not getting going yet. However, with Lamar Jackson flinging it, pay the man, with Lamar Jackson flinging it downfield and really keeping defenses on their heels, even without Marquise Brown, it will start to open up. The other layer here is whether it's Cam Akers, who did look good last week, James Robinson, or now Justice Hill, we have to revise our Achilles injury running back conventional wisdom. And remember, we were excited about Justice Hill when he was drafted in the 4th round because he's got that speed. He's got that shot out of a gun speed, initial burst, and acceleration.
I need to see better discipline from him before I get excited.
True.
You mentioned Gus Edwards, and I'm way more excited about Gus Edwards' opportunity because we've seen it, and his style is pretty simple, like not see ball, get ball, but like see tackler, run over tackler.
Yeah.
He'll try to beat you with the sparklers. He's like Josh McDaniels as a coach, right? So look over here, sparklers, everybody, and you get distracted. Like Justice Hill's okay, But
Yeah.
this situation is fluid. Bloom, I feel like I just want to do like a rumor show today because the waiver wire is pretty lame this week.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. You're getting the true reveal. The waiver wire
Yeah.
isn't. This is not the waiver wire you're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I feel like a gossip show, like a gossip portion, because you're mentioning all these things that I can't necessarily talk about with Baltimore, but I'll tell you more off air. But yeah. Things aren't going well.
No, and I'll just say this: whether it's Justice Hill or Gus Edwards, we know it's not Kenyon Drake. We know it's not Mike Davis, and we know that the pendulum should swing back where defenses are going to say, well, if we let the run beat us, we let the run beat us. We can't let Lamar Jackson continue to dunk on us as a passer. So I think what we've outlined for folks is this Baltimore running game, if it gets back online, and this could just be a running game that looks like last year and never truly gets back online. If Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins aren't quite themselves this year, Justice Hill, like you said, undisciplined, we'll see. But the Baltimore Ravens running game, very unsettled, which in 2022 in the waiver wire, it's about all you can ask for.
Yeah, and I love how Diego brings up the fact that I think we often forget about the mental aspect of severe injury recovery, especially for players who demand so much from themselves.
Yeah.
And at least they changed the injured reserve like rules now, so you can be around your team. Because we've seen problems with that before, where guys like you're not part of the team,
right?
And that also adds to your mental health aspect here.
Since we're taking a walk during this show, and I like this. I mean, because there's so much content we need to deliver, and we're going to do that. Okay. And you got my waiver wire report. I'll be updating it through the end of the day for any new developments. But number one, like you said, the NFL rules are screwy sometimes. And I think even when players are suspended, not having them be around the team, that doesn't
the structure that they need.
Right? Like the family, basically.
What does every flipping athlete say when they retire? What do you miss most? I miss being around the fellas.
Yeah, the family. And I think going back to Diego's point, what's up, Diego? Always good to see you, man. We don't see. So I know you and I have talked about this for a while, right? Everybody out there, whatever your job is, imagine if at any time when you were doing your job, like when we're like typing spontaneously, all 10 of our fingers would break, or our vocal cords just snap. I can't talk anymore. And then you have to build yourself all the way back up. I don't think
sounded like Ned from South Park there.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to do. My point is just that, like Diego says, I think there's so much of the human aspect of this that we overlook. And I absolutely think injury recovery, we're just like looking at timelines and we're trying to get reports and things like that. Meanwhile, there's somebody there that has had their whole life invested in getting to a certain point and then have to climb all, like imagine if you were up the mountaintop and then you got knocked all the way back down and then you have to get up the mountaintop with one of your limbs not working the same. It's just something that the NFL continues to be so compelling, so compelling. But the reason it's compelling is because these players lay it all on the line every single week. And I think we just underestimate how much that takes out of them and how much of a true commitment it takes.
And Bloom, I hate to talk about money because it's not all about money, but imagine typing, breaking all your 10 fingers at once and losing on your $1 million paycheck.
Yeah.
And they've been $1 million for a while. I was talking to Chad Brown, I don't know, a year ago probably. And I was like, what's the biggest check you had? Like single week check. And he was like, it was, 7 figures. I was like, oh, for a week. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, and a lot of pressure, a lot of outside influence
from your family, from your community, lots of pressure.
I know a lot of players
we can understand
are isolated from their family because they've given them, I know I won't get specific, anymore. But I know players who retired members of their family and then like don't talk to them. They retired, they paid, like here's everything you need for the rest of your life. Now leave me alone.
Yeah, well, see, and some of that stuff may or may not have to do with what happened with Aaron Rodgers. Okay, I've learned some stuff off the record about Aaron Rodgers that has made me think, let's not make fun of him about what happened with him and his family. Okay,
if you know that, dude, you should never make fun of Aaron Rodgers about his estrangement from his family. If you know that, and we can't talk about it on air, but like,
no, we're gonna respect.
And Aaron Rodgers for good, and he brings some of it on himself because he's the way he is. But it's like, Whenever someone makes fun of Aaron Rodgers, I was like, "Oh, you're that type of person."
Yeah,
All right.
and look, I'll just say one last thing on this stuff. This is way more interesting than the waiver wire this week.
Yeah, it is.
Look up how it goes for some people when they win the lottery. You know, in some states, I think you have the option to remain anonymous when you win the lottery, and there's a reason people do it.
Yeah.
You should. For a lot of people, winning the lottery ruins their life, and part of the reason it ruins their life is you can't trust anybody anymore to know who's actually around you because they just are still your friend or still someone that cares about you and who wants something from you. And I think that happens to a lot of football players.
Yeah, definitely happens to a ton of football players. So, are we done with the running backs? Can we move on?
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. We're still doing a waiver
we
wire
did have was it Ion? Somebody asked about Khalil Herbert, and I was like, you should already have Khalil.
Hold
Herbert.
him. Yeah, he's not an ad.
You
He's
should
not
already
a prop.
have him. Like,
David
don't
Montgomery
think
looked
he
like
should
a
be
guy
out
who
there.
knew his job was on the line. Let's put it that way. David Montgomery ran like someone who's like, oh man, I better get it together. I'm going to lose my job.
Freddie says winning the lottery puts Miracle Grow on your vices.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, getting to have anything and everything is not the best thing. It can be the worst thing.
It can be the worst thing. I stumbled down a YouTube wormhole because Bloom, I woke up at I think I woke up at 2. I was writing, so I fell asleep on the couch. And I wake up, it's like 2. It's on YouTube, of course. Thank you, YouTube overlords. And there's like an Edward Furlong interview I'm watching.
Wow.
And the interviewer's like, well, what have you been doing? And he goes, lots of heroin. I was like, oh my God.
Child actors.
Yeah. So, you know, there's some things you connect with actors world and that world and the NFL world and the athlete world and the pressure they're in.
See, it's a Grateful Dead lyric. It's a Robert Hunter lyric from the song Shakedown Street. Maybe you got too much too fast.
Now I'm thinking about a shakedown, takedown. Everybody break down the waiver wire report. How about Jerry Jeudy, huh? Yeah, Jerry Jeudy. Everybody, as we move to the wide receivers, I'll get the picture of Dr. Gene in just a little bit because we know it and we love it. Dr. Gene Brammel's injury report, the full one, is available at footballguys.com. Look, that's us. We are Wolverine right now, Bloom.
Yeah.
We are Wolverine. Yeah. We're missing the great Dr. Gene. His waiver wire and injury report is available at footballguys.com. So go there, check us out, and check out footballguys.com. Sign up for that free daily newsletter. But Jerry Jeudy, not a shoulder as it first was reported. Jerry Jeudy has a chest thing, right chest injuries day to day. He is doubtful for week 3, I believe. And there's a couple injuries with the Broncos that are super important. One's Jerry Jeudy, the other's Pat Surtain. And this does tie in. I guess it's more of a preview show thing, Bloom.
Sure.
Pat Surtain's probably not going to play. So against Jimmy Garoppolo, you're looking to Brandon Ayuk, you're looking to Deebo Samuel. We'll talk about the status of George Kittle, but obviously Denver can't stop tight ends. Lovie Smith can stop his tight ends. Lovie Smith didn't do his homework, right, Bloom? At all. What? Denver? What do we do? Tight end? Nah.
Yeah.
Nah, we don't need to. Come on, Lovey. You still have to do your homework of watching the boys, Bloom. But either way, let's move to the wide receiver position. Your upgrade, downgrade, waiver wire report available at footballguys.com. And it's more than just Joe Flacco, because for the love of God, if Zach Wilson takes over, and there's so much tea there with the Jets, Bloom, again, I'd rather talk about that. Garrett Wilson's very interesting, right? Good man, good young man, good player, whatever. But the stuff with Wilson is more interesting because of the power struggle that you have between GM and head coach. The power struggle where the GM's trying to prove himself right with Zach Wilson and the coach is taking notes on, let's just put it this way, Bloom. Timmy fell down the well. Robert Saleh knows what he's up against because it's the old, it's the relationship thing. It's not me, it's you. It's not you, it's me, whatever. It's going to get to that. If the Jets don't win, the ownership with the Jets will be faced with a situation of each side pointing the finger of GM and head coach. So Robert knows, he knows, which is good. And that's why Zach Wilson's injury might linger a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Especially if Joe Flacco can keep dealing to Garrett Wilson, 50+% on the waiver wire.
And I don't think he's out there, but again, I'm looking at those Yahoo rostered percentages. If it's 60-ish%, I'll say, because our app runs off of those. So I want to make sure to alert people to how important these pickups are. But I'll talk a little bit about Garrett Wilson anyway, because he was electric. He was just, sometimes there are players that play in a way that make teams just tear up the game plan and say, okay, we need to feature this player. And I think that was Garrett Wilson. I don't think it's a surprise that he caught the touchdown. He took a real hard hit to the back, I think, in this game too, and came back in. I thought maybe we weren't going to see him again in this game, and he's ready for prime time. Now, how will Zach Wilson being ineffective win? And if Zach Wilson gets in, what about Elijah Moore and all that other stuff? Whatever. If you can get someone like that on the waiver wire, you empty the wallet. And see, I think that the Jets in some ways are in a similar position to the Steelers, but further along the Steelers, where you have all this talent, you need someone that can unlock the door so it can get out and help your team. And Joe Flacco, even though it took a while, even though it was improbable, did. I don't know if Zach Wilson can. I know that Mitchell Trubisky can. I don't think Mason Rudolph can. We'll see about Kenny Pickett. But there's so much offensive skill player talent now. Breece Hall, Michael Carter, among others too. We'll see. It gets interesting. We're past that turbulent takeoff part of the league, so now we get into seeing who these teams really are. And again, with Miami, with the Jets, I want to stress that magical thinking. When something magical happens to your team, it can change you, and you can be different and believe. What do we always talk about? He's confidence, belief in self. It happens, things change.
Yeah, it happens and things can change. And the more that you do it, the more it becomes, success begets success. Like the more it happens, it is momentum in football and in life. That's what positive energy and negative energy are all about. Bloom, I might be the only person, one on YouTube, maybe not on YouTube, but we're talking positive vibes.
Yeah.
Who's on my shirt? Do you know? Are you familiar with the Egyptian lore that much?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Who is
that?
And his tablets are emerald. If you can.
Yeah. Thoth.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, Thoth, the librarian. See, that's one of the Mardi Gras parades. Thoth Sunday. It's the Sunday before.
Why am I not there for that?
You got to come down for Mardi Gras. It's Thoth Sunday. It's the parade. I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right. He's the librarian, and they go past the places where, like, the children's hospital and the places where people and the city messed this up last year. It's a specific parade cease that they're the only one that has a parade route that goes past some of the places where people who can't get out live. So there's a parade that goes past where they live, so they can see and be part of a Mardi Gras parade too, and that's the one.
That's the one. All right. I know a great place to stay in New Orleans too. So
yes.
There you go.
Come on down.
There we go. Let's move on to the waiver wire report. I love Jahan Dotson.
Yeah.
I love him. 10 to 20%. And again, we're still not seeing what he does best, Bloom.
Yeah.
Like all these touchdowns. What was his last touchdown? Like 8 yards.
Another contested catch touchdown.
Another contested catch touchdown that's a little bit closer when the team's in the red zone. And listen, Carson Wentz sucks. And he's not a good teammate, allegedly, or whatever I have to say. So you hate Carson Wentz. I don't hate Carson Wentz. I just know too much. But those flipping receivers with the Commanders are so good. Like they're propping up the weight, the albatross that they have at quarterback in Carson Wentz. Jahan Dotson, 10 to 20%. He makes me happy. Jacoby Myers, 10 to 20%. And New England, whatever. It's Mac Jones. It's Mac Jones, everybody. Let's get those two out of the way before we get to the next little clump here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of potential pickups at wide receiver, and some of this stuff is you take the ball and we may call the play, but you're going to run it. Dotson, like you said, Cease, there's a lot more to his game. I mean, this is a small receiver winning contested catches in the red zone, and Carson Wentz has his trust. And as long as Carson Wentz is good, Dotson's at least a what the heck flex. If anything, now we're looking at Washington with Dotson and Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin and Logan Thomas. Again, maybe that will just elevate Wentz and they'll elevate each other. You don't know if Dotson can truly break out and become an every week start just because of the number of mouths to feed there, even with Wentz playing well. And then there's Jacoby Myers. And no matter what the Patriots do wide receiver, it's going to be Jacoby Myers, right? It's going to be Jacoby Myers that really is the dovetails with Mac Jones, who's, I don't want to say Mac Jones is conservative, because you did see that. We're going to talk about Nelson Aguilar. You saw that Nelson Aguilar climbing up over Witherspoon.
Let it fly, yeah.
Yeah, but really Mac Jones it's the processor, right? And the processor, so if the processor is going to find who's his favorite receiver, whoever's open, guess who gets open a lot? Jacoby Myers. Maybe he'll never catch a touchdown again, but he's going to be a high floor PPR wide receiver 3 flex play if he's out there.
If he's out there, let's get to the next selection, next group. Ashton Dulin, Josh Palmer at 7 to 15%. Throw in Nelson Aguilar, 5 to 10%. Greg Dortch, it's working, 5 to 10%. for Michael Gallup as well, who the plan was always to bring him back in week 3. Looks like he's on track to do that. Sterling Shepard also 5 to 10% this week, Bloom.
Yeah.
And we did have Wan'Dale Robinson. Didn't we have a
Someone
question
asked about
that?
Wan'Dale
Yeah,
Robinson.
Wan'Dale
I just
earlier in the
think,
show.
you know, you've got the knee issue. You've got Richie James doing some stuff. Kadarius Toney, if he ever gets healthy and out of the doghouse. We'll talk a little more about that.
You know what I like about Wan'Dale from a dynasty perspective is with Dable, you see the plan for him.
Yes.
Right? It's like when Montreal Washington does anything in Denver, it is a Broncos show. That's their idea for Hamler.
Yeah.
Montreal's not as good, but that's their idea for Hamler. So when I see Richie or whoever, I'm like, I'm watching for Wan'Dale futures bloom, like a stock ticker.
Yeah, I think that you're right. Getting him in the second round, there's a plan for him. We'll see. I don't think the Giants' offense is going to be miracle grow for anybody for fantasy this year. Might as well, since we're talking about Giants, talk about Sterling Shepard. Shepard's kind of like Jacoby Myers light. He's going to, and another one, even though wide receivers Achilles, the narrative isn't the same, but Shepard. So if your depth is just so poor that you need someone to start this week in a PPR league, maybe it's Sterling Shepard. Now I want to step through these guys. Ashton Doolin, and I wonder if I'm underrating him. Part of the reason I couldn't get really excited about Doolin is because, well, Matt Ryan. But what you saw from Doolin this week was in a miserable week, he produced well, and we don't know when Michael Pittman's going to be back, but Paris Campbell, I'm afraid that ship has sailed. Alec Pierce, even before the concussion, he looked a little overwhelmed. I think Doolin's your number 2 receiver for this team now. I don't know if Ryan can support the value of Pittman and Doolin, but Pittman's already hurt. And again, Doolin, small school player, 25 years old. It makes sense that maybe his development curve, that upslope, would take a little bit longer, but he's there and he has the physical tools and he has the game. Josh Palmer, glass half full, he caught a touchdown. Glass half empty, and Keenan Allen has a hamstring, so we'll see when he gets back. And Justin Herbert's quarterback. Glass half empty, Herbert's hurt. Glass half empty, Palmer wasn't very efficient on his targets. So it's hard to say, and again, these are players that might still be out there in a lot of these public leagues. That's why we're talking about them, because the app is run by this report. It's hard to say, you know, I don't want to throw cold water on anybody that is Justin Herbert to one of his targets. But at the same time, we saw an audition. It didn't necessarily go great. Nelson Aguilar, definitely the most athletic receiver now, and maybe he has that trust even without that long touchdown. He still had a decent day. He's worked his way back into the good graces of this team. But then again, so has Kendrick Bourne. It's Devontae Parker, actually. All that hype during the spring, going into the summer, not so much. Greg Dortch, you can lose your job due to injury in the NFL. If Greg Dortch is performing, and he is, then when Rondale Moore is back, he might not have the same role he was envisioned to have before Dortch emerged. And we know this team's got to pass a lot, and we know Kyler Murray is going to be, the whole offense is going to be on his shoulders. And then we get to Gallup. And see, I really didn't know what to do with Gallup and Noah Brown this week, because Noah Brown's had 2 good weeks with Cooper Rush at quarterback. And there's that backup to backup narrative.
Right.
But at the same time, Michael Gallup's coming back, and we know Michael Gallup's good, and Dak Prescott will be back soon enough. I don't even know what Noah Brown's snap count is going to look like. So there's just no way I could say pick up Noah Brown over Michael Gallup. I think if you're going to pick up a Cowboys receiver, because now all of a sudden the sun has come out, right? The storm clouds were gathering. Now it looks okay for the Cowboys, and facing the Giants, the 2-0 Giants, they can take them down. So I think Gallup is the better preemptive pickup. But I won't be surprised if Noah Brown has a 3rd straight good week against the Giants, and that's why we're going to talk about him next.
That's why we're going to talk about him next as we wrap up the wide receivers. Noah Brown, Matt Collins, Jameson Williams, 1%ers, all. Well, Noah Brown's a little bit higher. And Bloom, I'm also getting Broncos questions, as I often do. Like, without Jerry Jeudy, nobody.
Tyree Cleveland.
Albert O, no. Like, no. Just no. Please, no. So, like, you will see, and I'm glad you bring up. I like Tyree as a special teams guy. You don't get points for that. Kendall Hinton to do some things. Every team wants a Kendall Hinton. And then they do have a package of plays for Montreal, Washington. You saw it on plays that didn't work. It's week 2 against the Texans, and Nathaniel Hackett is pulling out not 1, not 2, but 3 trick plays, and none of them work. Kind of like Nathaniel Hackett. Anyway, so yeah, it's Sutton, Williams and Gordon out of the backfield, Salbert once in a while, but Sutton, and more Cortland Sutton. So don't look for your Broncos backups on your waiver wire. Again, kind of a yawner at waiver wire this week.
Yeah, Kendall Hinton came up this week because I think that the Bears run pass split plus game script, only the Kendall Hinton Broncos were that irrational, just continuing to abandon the pass even when they're losing poorly. I hope Kendall Hinton's name is eventually associated with something else.
And I wish they would have freaking started him that game he played quarterback, because Philip Lindsay actually started the game at quarterback.
Wow.
And so now we can't say like you got to start at quarterback. Well, he played the game at quarterback, but the first snap was to Philip Lindsay.
Yeah. Last tier here, Noah Brown. If you have to play someone this week, Noah Brown might be a better play than Michael Gallup, and he's definitely merited a pickup, but I'm not sure how long his value is going to last. Mac Hollins, he starts. Is there any more anonymous starting wide receiver in the NFL than Mac Hollins sees? I don't think so.
No.
He was a week 1 starter, and what you saw was that, and it wasn't a lot of special treatment. Actually, Byron Murphy, who had that game-winning touchdown in overtime, did a really good job on Devontae Adams. And, well, that's when Mac Hollins became a bigger part of the game plan, and he looked pretty good. And there might be some more games this year where Mac Hollins is, again, teams are going to go into a matchup against the Raiders and say, well, if Mac Hollins beats us, Mac Hollins beats us. So we'll watch that. We get really deep. Jameson Williams. I bring him up, Cease, because the Lions offense looks good, and that's without Jameson Williams. What is it going to look like with Jameson Williams?
And don't worry about Amon-Ra St. Brown when Jameson gets out there. How many years have we done this, Bloom? And like there'll be a wide receiver that comes back and that's really bad. He's going to take it. No, he's not. It's going to make it better.
Even better.
Coverage is going to roll towards Jameson once Jameson shows how much he can ball. And make no mistake about it, Jameson Williams can freaking ball.
Yeah. Again, go back and watch the Lions war room whenever Chris Olave was announced number 11. And can we get the Lions to win the division bandwagon going? I think if they go into Minnesota and win this week, we can. And then Cole Beasley, he was just assigned to the practice squad. Will he be called up? I don't know. But look, a player like Cole Beasley with a quarterback like Tom Brady in an offense that is as depleted at wide receiver as the Bucs. I mean, you're crazy if you think there's nothing possible that could come of this. So we saw Beasley can still play. That wasn't the problem. That's why he's not on the Bills. It's just the Bills went a different direction, and I think the Bills are looking just fine without him. So yeah, Beasley is your preemptive pickup. He may not even be active for this game. He may not be on the active roster, but these situations where everybody's banged up sometimes don't just resolve themselves and everyone gets healthy, right? It sometimes can end up just that's how the season's going to go for the Tampa Bay wide receivers. And in that case, Cole Beasley could easily become a PPR wide receiver 3 flex that you count on because, well, he has a quarterback who knows how to use that kind of receiver.
It is the Audible, our week 3 waiver wire report. And we got to check in with Dr. Gene Bramall as we talk about the tight end position. And where's Dr. Gene Bramall's wonderful pictures here? Dr. Gene Bramall's full report available. I did the Wolverine one, but let's do him as Wolverine. Thank you, Brian, for that. So it's the injury report. It's available at footballguys.com. So make sure to check it out there. And we're all waiting for George Kittle, groin strain, day to day, questionable for week 3. Again, it's against the Broncos. So there you go. Sunday night football. So make sure to watch out for that. So George Kittle's the name. Again, full report available at footballguys.com. Bloom, let's get to the tight ends on your list and go through the upgrades, downgrades, and waiver wire report at the position. Kind of a cluster here at the top with Evan Ingram, Tyler Higbee, Logan Thomas, 7 to 15%, all there. Let's throw in Gerald Everett and Mike Gesicki as well, 5 to 10% for those guys.
Yeah, and Monday night add Irv Smith. And Irv Smith's in that first group, got a ton of targets, had potentially a long touchdown that he didn't catch. It's one of those situations where when a player gets a lot of targets but is inefficient with those targets, is that a good or a bad thing? I mean, team wants to try him, and he did have a touchdown, and he did have a pretty good return to that offense, but it was a miserable night for the Vikings offense. Evan Ingram's going to get a lot of short targets, efficient offense. They're going to try to get their money's worth out of him. Again, especially we're going to see what happens this week against the Chargers. That'll be a fun game. You have also Tyler Higbee, who just is dominating targets. I guess when Van Jefferson's out, and we don't know when Jefferson's going to be back yet, Tyler Higbee's going to be the second most even over Allen Robinson. It looks that way. At some point, 2 weeks is a trend, 3 weeks, we have to say that's the reality. So 2 weeks, we have a trend here with Higbee. Logan Thomas coming back from his injury. He had a complex ACL injury, ACL plus. He's back. He's catching touchdowns. He's part of this rising tide of this Washington offense.
Is that what we call it now? It's like a streaming service, ACL plus.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Well, it's not the one you want to. It's not the add-on you want to sign up for if you're an NFL player. But Logan Thomas coming all the way back. Gerald Everett, you can't really argue with the results, right? The numbers are there, and it's not on him. The 99-yard pick six is not on him. He was asking out of the game, so I think that you have to expect, as long as Donald Parham is out, at least Everett's going to get those extra targets. Obviously, he has chemistry with Justin Herbert. We'll see how much Herbert is affected by that injury against Jacksonville. And then Mike Gesicki. What do you do with Mike Gesicki? His snaps went from about 40 to 60%. He was running more routes, not blocking as much. Still wasn't a big part of the pass offense. But what you saw, Cecil, was one of those throws that it looked like Tua was throwing the ball away, right? I mean, I know they say like, oh, he was throwing it where only his guy could get it. Yeah, only his guy could get it if it's Mike Gesicki. And even I don't know if Mike Gesicki knew if he could get that until he went up and got it.
Right.
So, but on the other hand, that shows the immense physical talent that Mike Gesicki has. And sometimes teams figure it out, right? Why did they franchise Mike Gesicki? Oh, we're going to have an offense that emphasizes blocking from the tight end. Why would you franchise him? But now things change. If defenses are saying we have to take away Hill and Waddle and make Miami win with other players, Gesicki's one of those other players. And it sure seems like the plays they call for him are going to work, right? If you have the safeties watching, because we saw even the Jalen Waddle screen pass touchdown, wide receiver screens. See, when was the last time you saw a wide receiver screen work in the end zone, like inside the 5? I mean, it's not a play. It's not one you dial up inside the 5 when everything is compressed. But because Tyreek Hill was in the backfield, it was the dog in the tennis ball. And all the defense just watched Tyreek Hill while Jalen Waddle had a perfect lane into the end zone because it was well blocked on the outside because they were watching Tyreek Hill. That's Mike Gesicki, right? With Waddle and Hill, 2 tennis balls. Gesicki's just going to run free down the middle of the field. So if we like Miami's offense, if we say something special is happening, then Mike Gesicki could be part of that, and maybe he should have been the number 1 pickup at tight end this week.
Please, Stephen Ross, don't screw this up and fire Mike after 1 year. Please, for the love of God. Like, we're excited about Dolphins football. That does not happen often. We're excited about Isaiah Likely as a 1%er. We should talk about him every show, Bloom.
Yeah.
Isaiah Likely, 1%. Tyler Conklin, 1%. Juwan Johnson, 3 to 5%. Sure. We round out the tight end position.
And Juwan Johnson got 7 targets, caught 4 of them. He was targeted downfield and open on one of Winston's back-breaking interceptions. There was more than one. But you can see the converted wide receiver. Talking about these Penn State guys, even though he ended up at Oregon. Quack, quack. So Johnson has a chance to be part of this pass offense. And I think that this could be a very good thing here with Jameis Winston. Tyler Conklin continuing to get those targets. And what's a theme starting to emerge here? All these talented wide receivers, that means there's targets available for the tight end because it's like Dalton Schultz last year. It's just that's going to be a target that is an easy target, high percentage target for the quarterback. And Isaiah Likely, only 21 snaps, but 4 catches for over 40 yards. And if this is the Lamar Jackson is slinging it offense, then that opens up the possibility of a third potential target having fantasy relevance. That's Likely. And remember, with these rookies, as the season goes on, they tend to get better.
They tend to get better, and things get better when we get to this portion of the show. And if you're new here, just follow along because you know what time it is. It is the Audible. It's our week 3 waiver wire report. It's Cecil, Lammey, it is Sigmund, Bloom. And sometimes you just have one of those days, Bloom. Sometimes you just have one of those weeks. And boy, I don't want to get too specific on this one. Maintain your professionalism, everybody. But there's times in football and life where you just have to scream it to the heavens. And certainly fantasy football gives you these emotions. I tweeted about it because Twitter's the least important thing ever. But I tweeted about, like, watching the Broncos makes me crazy, especially when they're terrible and god-awful with Nathaniel Hackett not knowing what to do. I think the talent's there, but Hackett's definitely not showing the signs of a good coach. Definitely not look like Mike McDaniel. There you go, Bloom. We should just talk about Mike McDaniel every show. So you need to do this. You need to sometimes, well, sometimes being every week during the football season on this show, to scream it with me. Everyone say it together. Cue the Chuck D! Bloom, week 3. Shut them downs.
Yeah, Cease, those people that avail themselves of therapy, don't we all need therapy? I think there's an idea in therapy that there's some relationships that are just toxic, right? That sometimes the answer is like I'm not going to be able to be well if you're in my life, and you shut them down. That's what you do. You cue the Chuck D on them. There's some players we're going to cue the Chuck D on. This is more like pour one out for Trey Lance. Matt Ryan in one quarterback leagues. No, I don't think I'm going to trust him in any given week. Geno Smith looked like maybe there was something there in one quarterback leagues. No. Running back, probably shutting down Rex Burkhead, shutting down Kenyon Drake. In a short bench league, I'm not really holding on to Rashad Penny. Penny's still a solid player. But I think that if there is going to be someone that emerges out of this backfield, it's going to be Walker. Watch Walker's Wildcat snap. Whew. Walker's got it. I mean, I don't know if it's going to mount to fantasy value this year, but I saw enough to say, yeah, Penny is the second best back in that backfield right now. Jaylen Warren, why would you want the backup running back for the Steelers, even if Harris's foot falls apart? No, thank you. I think that if you were looking at him as Harris's foot, it doesn't matter. It's the Steelers. On that note, George Pickens, maybe we'll go back and pick him back up if there's a quarterback change.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But I'm not waiting around for that. Devontae Parker, Donovan Peoples-Jones looked like he might be Jacoby Brissett's favorite receiver in week 1. He had one target. It was almost an amazing catch in the end zone, but Amari Cooper's back. Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, I think you can see now with Allen Lazard back, they're going to become more fit players in this pass offense. DJ Chark, I'm not dropping just across the board because I like this offense, but it looks like he's sharing with Josh Reynolds now. And, so I would be dropping him for any of those guys like Doolin, Palmer, Aguilar, Dortch that we've been talking about. Robbie Anderson, I'm probably going to drop in short bench leagues just because, again, see, all roads lead back to the same point sometimes. Time is a flat circle. Do you want to count on Baker Mayfield, really? Do you want to, when you submit your lineup, to depend on Baker Mayfield in any way? I don't know. That doesn't feel great to me. Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Now, perhaps against Indianapolis, who's good against the run, maybe this is when we see Valdez-Scantling break through with a deep ball, but when's it going to happen again? So I think he just looks like frustration this year for your fantasy teams. Going to shut down Cole Kmet if you haven't already. If you want to give him one more week, okay, you gave him one more week. It wasn't in a monsoon. He's still Cole Kmet. Alberto, and Cease was on top of this one. Just listen to Cease when it comes to the Broncos, that he's just not really a dedicated part of this offense, even with all the injuries at wide receiver. And Noah Fant, and if Noah Fant was in Denver, we'd be saying Noah Fant's not a dedicated part of this offense. He's not a dedicated part in Seattle either.
Yeah, and when the nature of the offense is 2 tight ends and it's going to flow through that and they don't have one. All right.
Problems.
Bloom, there was a receiver, though, that you didn't mention in the shut him down segment. So I just wonder to myself, because the chat room has asked about it multiple times. So I wonder, there are players where you can't cue the Chuck D yet. You just can't do it. You can't shut him down yet. But instead, you have to hold on. So in week 3, who are some of your hold ons?
And I just want to say Dwayne McFarland, who's brilliant and now doing some good work for Matthew Berry. I guess Dwayne doesn't listen to the Waiver Wire show, and that's okay. As fantasy football content creators, we only have so much time, because he said that there was a song written that was perfect for the feeling that you need to have in fantasy football when you have to have some patience. And so he also arrived independently at the conclusion that, I think it was you. Was it someone from our community or you that came up with Hold On?
I can't remember.
Yeah, it's so long ago.
How long
right?
have we done Hold On? We've done Shut Him Down and Hold On for
a long time.
12 years.
Something like
years,
that.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty neat, though, that Dwayne was like, this song is perfect. You're right. It is, Dwayne. And we're going to hold on to some players. Okay, quarterback. We're going to hold on to Russell Wilson. Don't spite drop him. Okay. I mean, I just think that I mean, in a one quarterback league, you know what? I might regret and look back and say, you know what? There was nothing there after all. But give it a little bit of time. Justin Fields, I would still hold on to because, again, give it some time. All right. 3-4 weeks in even we may not know what Justin Fields is capable of, although it doesn't look like he's the answer right now. And Jameis Winston, hold on. I think he's still getting going up to speed. Remember, he's got a lot better receivers than last year. At running back, just to be sure, even in a short bench league, I would hold on to Darrell Henderson. I would be holding on to Chase Edmonds. Again, even though it's disappointing where Mostert emerged, he's not known for staying healthy. Could be back to Edmonds, and Edmonds could be the one taking advantage. Hold on to Khalil Herbert. Hold on to Nyheim Hines. And this might be just one, or it's my blind spot with the scat backs. I think that if they go back to the drawing board and say what went wrong this week, not enough Nyheim Hines. That's what I'm going to say. Hold on to Juju Smith-Schuster. Hold on to Darnell Mooney. I'm not starting him. But again, things can get going as the season goes on. I think you hold on to Kadarius Toney. Now, in a short bench league, if we're in a kind of league where Tua's out there or Garrett Wilson is out there, I would drop if the only player you could drop for Raheem Mostert is Kadarius Toney. Okay, but we know he has that stellar talent, and we know he came into the season hurt and then the doghouse. So I'm not giving up on him quite yet. Jarvis Landry also, even though Chris Olave was ahead of him, I mean, he's in an offense that's going to throw the ball a lot. Dalton Schultz is hurt. I haven't heard the specifics, but it's not expected to be a serious long-term issue for him, either avoided serious injury. So I think Dalton Schultz, just because it's rough out there at tight end, you're probably trying to hold on to him like we hold on to each other every week.
Every week. What did you say, Hunter Renfrow? Did I miss you talk about?
Oh, well, yeah. No,
the chat room was all up.
You're holding on
Hunter
to him.
Renfrow stock.
You're holding on to Hunter Renfrow. He got going. He did also potentially suffer a concussion. It was one of those situations where it was the last play of the game. So I don't know if he suffered a concussion or not. But I still think that you're going to see the Raiders, it was Mac Hollins this week. Renfrow got going. Darren Waller is obviously good. So there's enough there to feed 2 or 3 miles a week. And Renfrow is usually going to be one of them.
That is double true, as we say here on the Audible. He's Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. I hope the waiver wire betters next week, Bloom.
Yeah. Well, otherwise, but hey, if the waiver wire's not good, we get a chance to talk about life lessons and
let's just talk about rumors
football.
And rumblings and lassie barks.
Like the human side of football and the humor side of football. We try to do it all.
Yeah, humor us. All right, it is the Audible. I want you to do all those YouTube things, and we went over 2 million views. We did it last week. So 2 million views on our Footballguys channel. We appreciate everyone for doing that. And if you do those YouTube things, although I didn't get the notification today, Bloom, YouTube, you're dropping the ball. I'm more than
now we're demonetized. Thanks.
Yeah, now we're YouTube overlords.
17 cents.
Yeah. Hey, YouTube, piss off. Anyway, sorry, Joe. Do all those YouTube things. Like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We appreciate you and love you so very much. Be back, of course, tomorrow morning with the preview show part 1. Everyone out there, stay tuned. And as always, I command and demand that you stay frosty.